Fellow naughty steppers, it's lovely to see you all once again, even though I can never see you. But it's time for another review, and it's from one Never Say Die release to another, as for this video, I'm going to be talking about the new Adair EP, Friendly Fire. Now, Adair is someone who has produced or had a hand in some of my favourite songs of the past few years. From his solo single, The Last Disco, to his collaborations with the likes of Getter and Too Vain. Not to mention his special partnership with Omega Mode, who together produced some of the most game-changing dubstep tracks over 2014 and 15. Please guys, collaborate together again soon. But more recently, Adair has been cementing himself as one of Never Say Die's best lesser-known artists, with this being his second full EP on the label after last year's Roots, as well as featuring on the Never Say Die Volume 5 compilation and multiple Black Label collections. In all honesty, I haven't enjoyed his output as much since the start of 2017, which was a relatively quiet year for him anyway, even through collaborations with the likes of Company and Nitty Gritty. But considering there are tunes of his from the past that I have not just liked but adored, I always really look forward to absolutely everything he puts out. And the first thing that struck me overall with this EP is that there is so much going on with every track. What I try to do with every review is thoroughly analyse every song and note everything down so that I have as complete and well-rounded an understanding of the project I'm looking at as possible. But in trying to do so with this EP, I continually struggle to keep up because there is just so much to take in. Lest this be interpreted as something bad, on the contrary, I think it works for Adair almost entirely in Friendly Fire. This takes shape mostly in the introductions, which are predominantly snappy and intricate, aside from the final track Pulse, which is in fact the most pulsating and invigorated opening sequence of the 4 tracks, with those underlying bass notes prepping the listener for its huge finale. But reverting back to the intricacy, it's nice to see Adair fleshing out this side of his production a little bit more. Because the tracks that I know him most for are booming dubstep behemoths, reminiscent of the stuff that Skrillex was producing around 2011 and 2012. But hearing those cute Wally noises in the first track, or the string-led directions taken in the second and third, signals him as a producer who is willing to tap into a wealth of different sounds. And this variation is noticeable with the percussion beyond its intricacy, making it a very captivating listen, pulling you in closer with every pinprick, every jab. Supported all the while with juicy sub-bass notes to provide that extra verve, keeping the tracks chugging along very nicely. It's nice having that image of each track working like a clock, ticking into action, whilst the final track resembles something more of a heavy vehicle starting up. Furthermore, the sheer amount of sounds available here translates into a near insurmountable energy within this EP, which is evident from the off, with those growls nestling beneath the delicate main surface, eager to pounce. The build-ups are also remarkably full to the brim, with stacked percussion and a wealth of various synths winding upwards and downwards throughout, giving the EP that electrifying feel in preparation for its focal points, the drops, which are also extremely energetic in their sound, but more importantly in Adair's note placement as they progress. This is most evident in the final track, starting from 1 minute 42, with that creep-in and succeeding blast being possibly my favourite part of the whole EP. Blurting out note after note and repeatedly hitting the listener in the face before going on to adopt a more staggered, glitchy approach. Moreover, on the second track Faded alongside Bass Trick, Adair displays a real ability to switch things around with his drops, going from helter-skelter, full throttle interjecting sounds to maddening, drawn-out screeches in hardly any time at all. And for some, this constant desire to change things up, which is also abundant in the first and third songs, would have its drawbacks. At points there is a lot of movement, with quick shifts between sequences, making the music seem a little unsure of itself direction-wise. However, I find myself really appreciating this aspect of the EP for its willingness to go the extra mile with its variation. My favourite example being in the second drop of Pulse, with that lovely mix of high and low tearing sounds and properly evil, oozy, acidic dubstep synths. However, there's definitely an extent to which I think some of Adair's ideas could have been a little more refined. Diversity is rife with these drops, but there doesn't seem to be a true end goal to most of them. Fantastic sounds, but with little coherence between them when grouped together. In that sense, some of the directions here don't really build on what has come before them, but instead try to tread their own path. Like the stark difference between the plosive, bouncy first drop and the screechy second drop in the first track. And it is those screeches that are the main point of misdirection in this EP, notable also in the second and fourth tracks, detracting a little from the more bombastic, standoffish and brutal stuff in their respective songs as a result. So whilst I really like the variation on show in the heaviest moments of this EP, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the interaction between them. And this uncertainty extends into the melodies, which for me are a little bit aimless. As with a couple of those drops and screeches, these melodies don't journey as much as wander off into unknown destinations. For me, he set an incredible standard with Omega Mode in tracks like Among Us and Revival, where the melodies were the storytelling parts of those tracks. But on Friendly Fire, they don't seem to have that purpose and, in turn, connection to everything that follows on from them. On another note entirely, I would love to spare some time to talk about some of the drums on this EP, which have an absolutely insane guttural design to them. Like in Underwater in the latter part of the first drop and lead up towards the second. Or just before the double drop of the title track, really setting the listener back as it approaches the second main one. There's just such a fullness and roundedness to them, they are entirely irresistible and impossible not to move to. And I must also quickly mention those brief trumpet notes at the end of each drop sequence in Faded, which do very well to make it even more animated than it already was. Now overall with this EP, I can say that it definitely lived up to my expectations. Because there are a wealth of brilliant moments here, rivaling some from the amazing tracks that I have come to know him for. But at the same time, I didn't expect too much, because he has set such a high standard at such an early stage in his career that continually reaching that point would be incredibly difficult. And honestly, I think it would be a little bit harsh to expect anything more from this EP. It's so hard to create ideas this adventurous, let alone make them all cohere. And I'm saying this because whilst it has these great moments, I can't say that I enjoy any of these tracks individually as wholes. But listening to this EP is definitely worth it for those instances of brilliance. Honestly, there are parts of this project that are truly expert. And on the basis of Friendly Fire, he is clearly a very versatile dubstep musician. We need more artists like him for sure. Now in terms of a favourite track from the EP, then I would have to go with Faded, the collaboration with Bass Trick. For me it stands as the best combination of sounds. That sumptuous combination of really full sounding drums and properly large dubstep synths just works oh so well together. And if you enjoyed this EP and would like some recommendations for some similar sounding stuff, then I thought of quite a few examples. So you have some more well-known artists like Spaghetti, Dr. Ozzy and E-Hide, but I also thought of some lesser known artists that you may not have heard of like D-Trace, Deflo and Charlie Zane. And so that brings my review of the latest EP from Adair, Friendly Fire, released on Never Say Die Records, to a close. Thank you very much, as always, for tuning in. Like this video, share it about, subscribe to the channel down to the right there, and leave a comment with your thoughts on Friendly Fire. What did you guys make of it? Next to my head there should be some links to other Never Say Die reviews on this channel, including the most recent one prior to this on the new Megalodon EP, Moonrock. Don't forget to like and follow Nawtystep across all social media if you haven't already. With everything linked, including the recommendations, of which there are quite a few of them this time, in the description box down below. And if it's naughty, then you know guys, so be sure as always to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I shall see you in the next one. Peace out.